Now it's ready? Perfect. Any marker?
Until they are ready, you know, I keep it loud. I am snicker, don't stop. Okay? Quick refresher before we continue. From the table we have just seen, hand up and give me one tonic muscle group between the three. Which one of the three groups we talked about is tonic? Deep multifidus. So deep multifidus is the example of the umbrella called local stabilizers. But all local stabilizers, they share the same features. Does it make sense? Good. So deep multifidus as an example of local stabilizer, we are sure that it is tonic. Any other group is tonic? Again, it's just an example of an umbrella called local stabilizer. Good. Any other group of muscle? Global stabilizer. You agree with this? Are you okay? So any stabilizer, we know that it is most of the fibers, most of the muscle fibers are slow muscle fibers, slow twitch muscle fibers. So when we say stabilizers, local or global, we think about tonic or slow twitch muscles. We think about the stability role. So S for S. Stabilizers for stability, for slow motor movements. Does it make sense? Perfect. So give me now group of muscle responsible for producing the power and force. Mobilizers, right? Makes sense. So give me two muscle groups that we know that they actually do movement. Globals. Smartly. I didn't mention it, but so I will come again. Local stabilizer, it's as we agreed, the stabilizer is not which muscle fiber and responsible for stability. But from its name, local stability. Okay? For example, if we talked about the deep multifidus, the deep multifidus is a small fiber between each level and level. Like small, specific on certain region or certain joint. Okay? Like the local shop. It serves a specific local area. So the deep multifidus, the tonic, it increases its tension through the slow motor units to stabilize the joints, to control segmental translation. So it's responsible for local stability, like specific joint, to control translation. So its job, it's here, close to the joint, holding the joint, and give order to the brain not to do excessive translation. So any excessive movement at the joint, specific joint, is happening, the brain, the central nervous system must understand. You know the spine? Spine. These muscles are a spine. They have to tell the central nervous system everything, every slight tension, every slight movement. Central nervous system must be reported immediately. Okay? You know the manager recruit employee effective immediately. This is the so it's a very strong relationship with the central nervous system because it's a very crucial because segmental translation or excessive translation means shoulder dislocation. It's called xenolitis. So when you see a patient like this, we start to think local stabilizers are not doing their job. Does it make sense? Because local stabilizers deep to the joint, like deep neck flexor, holding the neck in space. So if you find me, I can't hold my head in space, the normal alignment, I'm like this. So my deep neck flexors are gone, inactive, inhibited. Their activity is delayed. They are all describe the same problem. This is for me. Thank you. I feel like I need to show it. Are you okay so far? So it's not a surprise for you that any patient with joint alignment position is related to locals. Because locals are very deep, so they are responsible to keep the body aligned. Everyone's okay? So if your patient is coming to you doing only strength exercise, what are the muscles that are treated here? Strength. Only doing strength exercise. Global mobilizers. Because strength means force. And the team responsible for the force are mobilizers. That makes sense. So if I am a movement system, I have local stability issue. It's not a mobility force issue. It's a stability and local. It's a very specific. Treat this patient with strength years and give the symptom. Make sense? So this is a mistake because I didn't think about the muscle function or the element causing this problem, like spondylolisthesis, like patellofemoral syndrome because the patella is not stable, glenohumeral dislocation, atraumatic dislocation, it's a mechanical dislocation, non-traumatic. So local stabilizers is a must to be approached and treated. Are you okay? So why, now the question, why local stabilizers are being able to do such a specific sensitive job? And this is a third classification. Histological, classification. Local stabilizers are the muscles that are very rich in muscle spindles. Very rich in muscle spindles compared to the global group. What is a muscle spindle to start with? Anyone tell me what is a muscle spindle you talk about? What's a muscle spindle? I told them to ask, and they didn't ask. So now I ask. So muscle spindle is, we agreed that motor unit, muscle fiber. Okay, this is the central nervous system. Forgive my talent. Okay, giving impulse to muscle fiber through motor unit. So it's from the central nervous system to muscle. The opposite is muscle spindle. This the muscle report to the central nervous system or the brain through sensory nerve. It's not a motor nerve, it's a sensory. Giving information about joint position and muscle tension. Any slight thing happening in the muscle, the sensory nerve called the muscle spindle. So this is muscle spindle. Sensory nerve. Okay? Are you okay so far? Any slight change. I told you that these muscles are spine. Any slight change should be reported to central nervous system through this muscle spindle. So now I want your help. If I have a local stabilizer and I am responsible to hold joint in place and I must be active 24/7, I need less muscle spindles or more muscle spindles compared to the other groups? More. Because I need a lot of information to reach immediately. The cervical spine can't handle changing position in space because the cervical spine is connected to so many systems. So if it's unstable, it's a big problem, not only for the neck but for other systems, vestibular, okay, and respiratory, okay, and so on. What I want to say is that these muscles are very important and very sensitive. How? Histologically, they are full of muscle strength. So the more this muscle is related to stability, specific stability, protecting position, it must be designed to have a lot of muscle spindles. The muscle spindles, the rich muscles with spindles in the MRI, they show as red color, red fresh meat, sensitive, a lot of muscle spindles. And when these muscles are impaired, are not active, are delayed activity, when these muscles are inhibited, the muscle spindles are not functional. They are white. They are fibrous tissues. Does make sense? So the brain don't receive the information needed, which means I change the shoulder position. It's translating, and the central nervous system is not reported to adjust. Eventually, the local stabilizer is lazy more and more, inhibited, delayed, underactive. Does make sense? So when the research studied the effect of pain on these muscle spindles, we find that the red spindles, the fresh, the active, the lot of muscle spindles giving this fresh color, turn into white, fibrous, functionless. So again, we know that the problem with these muscles are leading to pain. Makes sense? And joint position is not aligned. Make sense? I will stop here. Let's start to talk with each other to tell me the difference between local stabilizer, global mobilizer, and I will have another one. Right? Talk to each other for 2 minutes.
कैमरे के आगे कौन खड़ा हुआ था? कौन खड़ा हुआ कैमरे के आगे?
ये यार ये बंद करवा दो ना, ये ब्लू शेड के ऊपर है।
भगवान हूँ मैं। इस वाले को भी लगा दो, इस कैमरे को भी लगा दो। GoPro।
Are you okay? Yes. Back on track? So this is a code, right? So seems like codes. We will feel the puzzle together, piece by piece. Ready? One question for you because I told you. What is LS? Good job. No break yet. Global stabilizers, right? And GF stands for global stabilizer. And I will add just a tiny information. Global stabilizers, we call them dynamic stabilizers. So local is local shock, stabilizer is dynamic. Stability through movement, not just position. Okay? So global stabilizer, what is the last? Global mobilizer. Good job. Through the previous intense discussion, we classified these three umbrellas according to four main points. Anatomy, I will get to it. What you need? You mentioned the okay. Total. Total is a description to classification. I'm talking, guys, about the classification way. How the deep multifidus, for example, okay, classified as total because of the following. A, anatomy. Okay? The anatomy of the muscle is one of the factors to classify it in one of the three. Make sense? Yes. Okay? So the anatomy of local stabilizer, the deep multifidus as example, superficial or deep? Superficial or deep? Deep. So when I find the muscle anatomically is deep, located, it tells us something about the function. Because these three groups is functional classification. So any factor we classify the muscle with must be related to its function. And the muscle function is related to the anatomy, histology, neurophysiology. Are you okay? So this classification is already based on summary of more than classification. I will explain myself. Again, we are talking about functional classification of muscles in our body. As you stated, three groups classify all the skeletal muscles. Local stabilizer, global mobilizer. Now the question, how, based on what muscles or each muscle categorized in one of the three groups? Based on four analysis. Anatomically, local stabilizer is deep muscle. Oppositely, global mobilizer is like the iliacus, okay? Erectorospinal, latissimus dorsi, all are big muscles. Does it make sense? Okay? So I will erectorospinal is example. Here I'm just giving example. But all the global mobilizers are big and superficial. Superficial and big in size. Does it make sense? Okay? Global stabilizer could be big or could be small. However, we know that it's not two joint muscle. It's not two joint muscle like the global mobilizer, it's monoarticular. stabilizer muscle for hip flexion. Rectus femoris is two joint muscle for hip flexion. Are you okay with this? Because we talk about the hip. Are you okay? So stabilizer is deeper related to the global mobilizer and monoarticular. Okay? It's not local like local stabilizer, but it's still not big like the global mobilizer. Are you okay? Okay. So this is two joint biarticular. This is mono articular. Like here, superficial multifidus. Superficial multifidus compared to deep multifidus, but it's still deep. Are you okay with this? So don't get confused because the same muscles can have different roles. Like the multifidus overall work as local stabilizer and the global stabilizer. So it controls segmental translation of lumbar spine and it controls lumbar flexion. If I want to do this, if I fall, the brake system superficial multifidus is gone. But if I can bend with a good control, this is an efficient multifidus. If I go in extension controllably and slowly, it's going good. If I just go like this, so there is no activity from the superficial multifidus as a stabilizer for back extension. Anyone is confused? Hands up. Okay? What I want to say, the location of the muscle defines its function, whether it's deep or superficial. Number two, the global stabilizer, it's like middle between global mobilizer, because it's relatively not very small like the local, it's also big, but in relation to the global mobilizer is two joint. This is big enough, but for just one joint. Are you okay? So it's relative between the two groups, right? We agreed that the one muscle can have different function. For example, I can find some fibers of the muscle are slow twitch and fibers are fast twitch. So that's why it's classified by the muscle, superficial and deep. For the glutes, we have the superficial glute max, the deep glute max, the deep sacral glute max. Deep sacral is local, deep glutes is global stabilizer, superficial glutes is global mobilizer. So one muscle with the three functions. Glute max. It's a big muscle. Are you okay? Good. So don't get confused if you find the muscle, each group of fibers doing certain job. So anatomically, deep and small muscles are local. Big, superficial, two joint muscles are global mobilizers. Okay? Global stabilizer, it's big, relatively, but monoarticular. This is the anatomical classification. One factor of classifying the muscle. What's next? The neurophysiology. Already you mentioned neurophysiology of the muscle. I will put motor unit. This is a neurophysiology classification or analysis to classify the muscles. Now you remind me, local stabilizer is slow motor unit or fast? Mobilizer is fast, basic and fatigable, and designed to produce force and power. Okay? Local stabilizer are tonic, slow, sustained activity is a must because my joint must be upright or aligned 24/7, which is its responsibility. She has no option to switch off if it's healthy. So it's a tonic, slow, and sustained specific tension. Because it doesn't move. Globals move. Local is just in place, holding tension. Okay. What about the global mobilizer? Global stabilizer. It's also tonic. Most of the fibers are tonic. Okay? So it's shared. The local stabilizer does no motor units. Right? But it shares the global system that it moves. It moves. Local stabilizer but doesn't move. Global is stabilizer but control joint range. So it moves. This increased tension, just increased tension. This produces force as a result of fast motor units. Global stabilizer also moves, okay? That's why it's a dynamic stabilizer. So it works through range of motion, but it controls the range. Control the range. So it works concentric, eccentric, isometric to control specific direction of joint range. Okay? The fast twitch motor units, it works concentrically, eccentrically, and isometrically to produce power and speed and momentum. So they both contract eccentrically, isometrically, and concentrically, but for different purposes according to the neurophysiology. Are you okay? The two globals? Okay. So let me give you an example. I, as a head joint, is staying in state. No movement at all. Which muscle should be active anyway? If you put EMG, you find it active. Normally, local stabilizer. Local stabilizer is 24/7 active. 24/7. If I started to move, okay, and this is what Paul Hodges found in his studies, the local stabilizers raise the tension a little bit to tell the brain movement will happen. Okay? And maintain this tension through the movement. Are you okay with this? Who is the local stabilizer here? Psoas major, obturators, whatever. But as an idea, locals already tension, already. 18% tension from maximum contraction. I want to do movement, it tends a little bit more, slight more contraction to 20, but it sustains the 20 with me. To tell the brain about the movement will happen. So now the movement is happening. Now I'm standing, I decided to step. Like in hip flexion like this. Which muscle is responsible to produce this action? Iliacus as a global stabilizer. Why? Because it's a low force task. Makes sense. Who is the stabilizer around the hip? Control the flexion of the hip. Deep glute max, also stabilizer. Because we are still in low pace, low force task. Okay? So iliacus do the action, but again, tonic, stability, low force needed, and deep glutes control the flexion so I don't overload the hip joint. Does that make sense? So in this case, if I have problem with flexion, which stabilizer, which global stabilizer you think about? Iliacus or deep glutes? Deep glutes. Both, but as a priority, I look for deep glutes. Why? Because if I need an function of a muscle that control the range, so I think about the concentric activity or eccentric. Is it too advanced? Okay, so from the start. Hip flexion, concentrically. What muscle work? Iliacus. Okay? Eccentrically, in the same movement, what muscle works? Deep glutes, opposite muscles. Right? So flexor, stabilizer. Extensor, stabilizer also. As long as I'm moving glutes. But if I have a problem with flexion, what is the brake system that lost the control? The eccentric action for me matters more when it comes to controlling joint range. Does make sense? So if I want to do flexion, I'll do it with iliacus. Hip flexor. The iliacus is a muscle. Its concentric action is deep glutes, concentrically do extension, but eccentrically control the flexion, the opposite range. So if I want to think about which muscle have control problem in this flexion direction, I think of the opposite stabilizer. Are you okay? So now your turn. I am a patient, you find me in sway back position like this. Hip extension. Okay? What is the stabilizer concentrically for hip extension? What is the muscles that control the extension? So if the iliacus is loose, it's not active, it's not controlling, so the hip has a problem in extension because the brake system here is not working. Does make sense? So when we think about the global stabilizer, it works concentrically also for flexion. In low pace, we need it. But if I want to target the control range, I focus on the eccentric action. Does it make sense? This is very important for you. Okay? As my colleague mentioned, and this is what clinically works, if you are too confused, as simple, I have a problem with hip flexion, I look for the stabilizers around the surgical field. Eventually, I will need both. But the priority is stabilizer that eccentrically do flexion. The problem will be. We will come to this again. But are you okay so far? Have this answered your question? My colleague, have this answered your question? So ask me another question, please. Shall I repeat? You done? So I can ask? I ask. Repeat? No. So I ask. I have this option. I will come again. We define functionally the muscles for three groups. Are you okay? Local stabilizer and
Global stabilizer.
And
Global stabilizer.
local stabilizer is now key, right? Deep muscles control the translation, keep the joints aligned, very sensitive to spine to central nervous system, they both everything. Right? It doesn't move, it's so peaceful. But it doesn't stop. Active 24/7. If this not happen, we know that there is a pain. There is a translation, there is joint position problem. That, okay? D. The other extreme is the global mobilizer. Big muscles, superficial, two joints ready for action, on fire. We name it as F. So group 1 is S, this is F. Force, its function is related to force. They are fatigable, on and off, phase, fast motor units, air. Okay? So the global mobilizer, I refer them to the F group, not the S group. Happy? Designed to produce force, anatomy-wise, histology-wise, neurophysiology-wise. They are not sensitive in muscle spectrum. The central nervous system is, you are fatigable, I don't need you a lot. Okay? Only in force. But, example, two joint muscle for hip flexion, for example. Give me example, long muscle, two joint muscle doing hip flexion. rectus femoris, that's the cross knee joint, two joint, and sartorius and iliotibial band. So these long flexors in the normal happy life, when I need them, if I'm not just walking, I'm kicking. So I need force. So now it's turn to get into the task. On the bottom, iliacus is helping. On the bottom, glute max is controlling. Because if I did like this with no control from the opposite group eccentrically, I will FAI or femur acetabular impingement or adductor strain or labrum tear, name it. Because of sudden force, no control. Easy? Now easier? So, histologically, we talked about the muscle spindle. And we are more concerned with local, very rich muscle spindles. Red, under MRI. Okay? Hena, less muscle spindle compared to locals. Here, very less, very little muscle spindles. They are not sensitive like the stabilizer group. Not sensitive. When needed, they give fast force and switch off. In one of the researches, we find a muscle like the quadriceps, very big muscle, has only 64 muscle spindles. Only 64 soldiers to give pain feedback what's happening with the muscle. On the other side, we find the deep neck flexor, which is a very small muscle, 3 centimeter muscle, has 264 muscle spindles. 264 soldiers ready for simple action. Does it make sense as a function wise? Yes. Now you can relate how sensitive, how crucial the stability and the function of locals when it comes to protecting the joints. Are you clear? So, the last part and the clinical part, how these muscles are classified. Why we're studying all of this? Big highlight, the thing studies do to know which is which, response to pain and the pathology. Your turn. What happens, for example, for muscle spindles of locals when it's not healthy, when it's abnormal? It's red or white? Again, this group. What happens if the local stabilizer is not healthy and it's not with this basic normal design? What might go wrong? If there is pain or pathology, it will be functional? Yes or no? Yes. No? No. This function in the normal happy life, in the normal situation. But in the pain situation, in the unhealthy or abnormal situation, you will find the local stabilizer, the muscle spindles are gone, so they are not sensitive, so they are not very initiative to movement, they are delayed in activity, not enough information. So they are delayed, they are less in numbers because the pain resulted into histological changes of the muscle spindles. So it's not sensitive anymore, it's not functional anymore. pathology and is a sign that these muscles originally were locally stabilized. So when I find the pain and MRI and white, we know that this muscle, it does make sense, it's a local, especially if it's a deep, and so on. Are you okay with this? Does it make sense? So how the response to pain, how we compare healthy subjects to subjects with symptoms, we end up by classification. Any questions? Please ask. If you understand this, so you have like the product of 2 years I'm studying this concept and 8 years I'm applying this concept, okay? So that's very important. Make sure you understand every bit of it. So, again, we talk about how local stabilizer function respond to pain and pathology. We know the normal function because we want to know the abnormal situation. But why the patient complained, what's the problem with locals? Are you okay? So as a response to pain, histological changes, muscle spindles gone, that was responsible for joint position, so the joint is not in neutral position. Make sense? The opposite to the function. How it developed dysfunction or impairment. On the other side, we find that global mobilizer, in return, overactive. They are working 2 shifts. Because when the local stabilizer is switched off, the task is happening. So some muscle need to replace. So which could be better than a basic, active, fast on fire global mobilizer. But they are 2 joints and they have extra job to do, so they get tired. So when there is a problem, when there is a pathology, local stabilizers are inhibited, are not active anymore, are not sustaining the tension anymore, but global mobilizer is overdoing. So it's overactive. So if I do kicking, and the stabilizers are gone, I have too much flexion movement, so I have uncontrolled hip flexion or symptoms with hip flexion. Does make sense? Does make sense? The task, the flexion will happen anyway. I am a body designed to do a movement. Flexion, but before the flexion happens, normally, local stabilizer must be ready for the movement. This is done. Who will start global mobilizer? So although that they should be involved late, they are involved earlier. And they are poor, they are not designed for too many jobs. So they get overactive. So they get tight. What I want to say is that we have different ways of muscles that problem happen to them. Not all the muscles get tight and need release. Not all the muscle when you stretch, they will be happy. Not all the muscle when you do exercise like loading and strength, they will be happy. Are you okay? So each muscle, according to its design and function and which group, it will report the problem differently. It will be causing an issue in a different way. Local stabilizers, they are inhibited. They are not active. They are not maintaining the joint position aligned anymore. Global mobilizer, they will be overactive. They will have a strain. They will have trigger point. They will have tightness. So it will be another form of problems. Global stabilizer mix, but it will not control the range. If I want to kick, and the deep glutes should be efficient to control all the flexion, it will be like this. Brake system is gone. Global mobilizer is the accelerator. If you want more speed to move the car faster, global mobilizer. The accelerator. But if you push more acceleration than brake, the brake is, you will have an accident. So if this is an accelerated hip flexion, global mobilizer doing fast job, brake the spinners, and there is no efficient brake, deep glutes stabilizer on the other side, or even iliacus on the bottom as a be uncontrolled. So that's why this is brake is dynamic stabilizer. Accelerator is a global mobilizer. Easy, this analogy makes sense? So as you raise the function or the speed, you need more training for the stabilizers, locals and locals. Are you getting this? Mike? So I have 3 mics. I feel I am so famous. So blogger. I'm a blogger now. So now, are you sure it's working? I should open it? It's open? I need to make a confession. I am not really good embarrassed. I am very peaceful. My physiotherapy skills are here. I'm good. But my technology skills are. And the driving in between. Because roads in Egypt. Driving in Egypt is not so easy, so I'm driving. So no one takes everything. So this is are you okay with this? Are you hearing me? You hearing me, guys? Yes. So last but not least, and you guys recap how the muscle classified or how the pain affected the muscle function. Easy now? How the pain affects the muscle fiber, the muscle function. Let's take an example of function, hip flexion function or movement. Okay? To do normal, healthy, happy hip flexion, I need 3 interaction between 3 groups around the hip. Zoas, major, and obturators, locals, deep muscles around the hip to raise the tension. So now the brain knows that movement will happen. Okay? Through the muscle expanded. This is the normal happy situation. And by the way, deep multifidus and the transverse abdominals are also increase the tension in lower limb and the upper limb. So locals should be active anyway to start moving and sustain their activity even through movement. This is a normal situation. So now I decided to actually move and take flexion step. I have two options. The iliacus, as a global stabilizer concentric flexion, is active. It does the job. Okay? And I have the opposite stabilizer. Deep glute max eccentrically control the flexion. Because concentrically, it's busy with extension. I don't care about this now. I care about its eccentric function when I look for control function. Again? Don't feel desperate from me. I will still surprise you in the lack of. It's so basic, but not for me. Are you okay? Shall I put it here? Okay? Not so okay.
Done.
In order. TK. TK or TK? TK.
ठीक है it's okay.
My language skills are good, but I miss that. Cha? Acha? Back on the step. So locals should add more tension to inform the brain movement will happen. Movement happen, sustain, no pace movement, fast with no force needed. So this is the job of the stabilizer. One will do the actual job direction. So to counterbalance this, I need activity from the brake, the eccentric stabilizer. Easy? Please, ladies, ask me questions. Ask me questions. I will ask 7 questions. Any questions so far? I feel that there is something that maybe my colleagues help get from them. Yes?
You were saying that if a person is falling forward, it means that their eccentric stabilizers are not working properly. That's why they are not standing upright.
In normal position. Yes?
So it does mean that their iliacus muscles are also
Tight. The stabilizers are not tight anyway. This is to start with. You mean not active?
overactive.
Okay, so my colleague question, because it's an important point, she thinks why falling on hip is a problem with eccentric action of deep glutes, which is an extensor, and not a problem with iliacus, although it's function to do the flexion. That makes sense. Okay. My answer is iliacus normally do have flexion with longer in neutral position. Okay? But if there is too much of flexion, I know that the iliacus is not efficient already, but the idea of the design of the global stabilizer is to control the range. For example, like hip flexion, tuck, 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 tuck. I need action concentric from iliacus, you're right. So if it's like this, it's not working, yes, but it's not the main or the first I look for to correct. I need the deep glutes to tuck, 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 to control the hip flexion in every single point. So if I do flexion like this, I need action like this, like this, like this, or the brake is controlled. So the control problem, yes, is related to the opposite stabilizer. But the function itself, yes, at some point I train the iliacus. I agree with my colleague, but if I have problem with eccentric function and concentric function and both are stabilizers, my priority when it comes to helping control is eccentric function. That's why when I have a flexion problem, I look for the stabilizer, same direction or opposite direction? Opposite direction. Again, if I have a problem with hip flexion as a direction of pain, and I have a stabilizer doing flexion concentrically, and I have a stabilizer eccentrically do flexion. Right? This is the situation, isn't it? So which one I need if I realize that there is overflexion happening stabilizer-wise? The eccentric. So this control the range. Right?
If a person is bending forward and he feels pain, so it means we have to work on the opposite muscle.
As a control-wise. Too much of flexion, or extensor, hamstring, mobilizer doing extension. Again, we agreed that when I have problem in one direction and I want to detect the stabilizers, okay, we look for the stabilizer in the opposite direction, okay, because eccentrically they will do flexion. Highlight the eccentric function. Again, if I have head flexion problem and I have a stabilizer doing flexion and the stabilizer eccentrically doing extension, we look for the opposite stabilizer to the direction of centers. Rule. same direction of symptoms. Okay? Because I want to control. Okay? Unlike the other group, global mobilizer, like rectus femoris, inflection problem, it's getting overactive. So if I have problem with flexion, which is the muscle is doing too much, mobilizer or stabilizer? Okay, if I have hip pain in flexion, which muscle is doing too much flexion? Global mobilizer or stabilizer? Hands up for global stabilizer. Hands up for global mobilizer. I am hypocrite and I raise hand. But yes, if I have too much flexion of the head, so I am having a muscle that's doing too much. Which is the muscle that's doing too much? Flexor mobilizer or extensor mobilizer? Extensor mobilizer is doing too much flexion. Right? So, if again the question, having too much flexion, which muscle is doing too less? Global stabilizer or global mobilizer? Stabilizer. Same direction or opposite direction? Exactly. If you think about it, to have flexion, I have two group imbalance. Flexors and extensors. But I started to have somoroflexion. So where is the imbalance? In the opposite group that didn't do its job. So one group take the lead. Are you okay with this? So flexors, mobilizers, took the lead. Ouch. Extensors, stabilizers, let go, switch it off. They left the movement without control. So when I think, where is the problem control happen? I think about the muscle that should work, but did not work. So the joint lost out of control. When I think about overactivity, I think about the muscle group doing too much of movement direction that end up with symptoms. That's why pain changes the global mobilizer function in terms of making it overactive and tight. On the other side, when there is pain, it changes the function of global stabilizer that it's inhibited. It's lazy. Okay? So I will walk like, okay? Rather than walking like this. So I will walk like this. Make sense? So walking like this means a brake system is loose, did not work to make me aligned. Isn't it? So this is when the problem of control happened. Let go. It did not work. So when I have a problem with flexion, I look for the extensors that didn't do its job. Makes sense? On the other side, when I look for muscle, it's tight, it's overactive, which is a muscle is overdoing flexion. So I look for mobilizers in flexion. Okay? If you got like 30-40% of the information, it's more than enough. To make it simple, we will go to case study. How about that? So we start to brainstorm the information. So I will go to a case study, and if you survive, we discuss. If not, we take break and then discuss. Happy? 10 minutes break? 30 minutes break? We leave 30 minutes? We are family now. No problem. So we will have a break. We deserve a break because I know it's a very heavy discussion. And the good news is this is the hardest part of the day. I know it is too much clouds here. We are all been there. But we will repeat in form of practical case study after the break. So have a coffee and bring your smile back. Okay?